Hello, today we will discuss one of the most striking and controversial events in recent civil aviation history, the Boeing 737 MAX crash. These accidents were not just the result of a technical failure, but also exposed several management mistakes, oversight shortcomings, and the consequences of corporate policies. Throughout the presentation, we will explore what the 737 MAX is, how the crash occurred, what role the MCAS system played, and what changes followed afterward. The Boeing 737 MAX is a modernized version of the company's best-selling 737 series. It was developed to offer lower fuel consumption and longer range. To compete with the Airbus A320neo, Boeing rushed the design to market. New, larger engines were used, but they affected the aircraft's aerodynamic balance. To address this, an automatic system called MCAS was integrated. In later slides, we will go into detail on how this system contributed to crash. How experienced were the pilots? The 31-year-old captain pilot, Bhavya Shuneva, who worked for Lion Air, had 6,000 hours of flight experience, 5,200 of which were on the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. The 41-year-old co-pilot Harvino had 5,200 hours of flight experience, with 4,300 of those hours on the Boeing 737 MAX. Let's take a look at the details of crash. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight Juliet Tango 610, a Boeing 737 MAX 8 operating from Jakarta to Pangkal Pinang in Indonesia, crashed into Java Sea approximately 13 minutes after takeoff, killing all 189 people on board. This was the first major accident involving the 737 MAX and significant repercussions across the aviation industry. The primary cause of the crash was malfunction in the aircraft's maneuvering characteristics augmentation system, an automated flight control feature. MCAS was designed to automatically push the aircraft's nose down if it detected a dangerously high angle of attack. However, the system relied on input from only one angle of attack sensor. On the day of the crash, the sensor provided erroneous data, falsely indicating that the aircraft was stalling. As a result, MCAS activated repeatedly, pushing the aircraft's nose down multiple times. The pilots tried to counteract the system actions, but MCAS continued to override their inputs, ultimately leading to the aircraft's crash into the sea. In the days leading up to the crash, the same aircraft had experienced similar technical issues. On a flight day before accident, pilots managed to disable the MCAS system manually and landed safely. However, the problem was not fully resolved or reported appropriately. Additionally, the angle of attack sensor had been replaced the day before the crash, but the new sensor was not properly calibrated, leading to incorrect readings and triggered MCAS. During the fatal flight, the pilots struggled to understand why the nose of the aircraft kept pitching down. Cockpit voice recordings showed they tried to consult the flight manual to identify and fix the issue. However, the repeated MCAS activations prevented them from regaining control. The aircraft tried to climb multiple times, but each time MCAS forced the nose down. Eventually, causing the plane to crash into the sea. Following the crash, Boeing and the FAA issued emergency directives and advised airlines to train pilots on how to disable MCAS. Despite these efforts, a similar crash occurred on March 10, 2019, involving an Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX, which killed another 157 people. These two crashes, resulting in 346 total fatalities, led to a global grounding of the 737 MAX fleet. The incidents severely damaged Boeing's reputation and triggered widespread changes in aviation safety and aircraft certification process. So, if we summarize the Ethiopian Airlines accident, the crash of the Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 737 MAX occurred for the same reason as the Lion Air Boeing 737 MAX accident. Ethiopian Airlines flight Echo Tango 302 crashed 6 minutes after takeoff. In this accident, a total of 157 people lost their lives. So, what is the MCAS system? MCAS, or Maneuvering Characteristic Augmentation System, is an automatic stability control system unique to the 737 MAX. It activates when aircraft is believed to be approaching a stall and pushed nose down. However, it relied on input from a single angle of attack sensor. If the sensor failed, MCAS could mistakenly interpret a stall and force the nose down unnecessarily. Pilots had to constantly flight the system and often lost control. Crucially, they were not adequately informed or trained about this system. Technical problems and design flaws. The MCAS system was developed to counteract the aircraft's tendency to pitch up during takeoff, caused by the new larger engines. However, it was based on only one sensor and had no redundant mechanism. When the sensor failed, the system repeatedly forced the nose down. Pilots, unaware of the root cause, struggled to regain control. Moreover, MCAS was not fully documented in the pilot manuals, and the lack of training became one of the critical reasons behind the accidents. Responsibility of Boeing and FAA. Boeing deliberately withheld detailed information about the MCAS system. Pressure to compete with Airbus and Liver quickly led the company to downplay the system's complexity. One reason for not requiring extra pilot training was to keep the aircraft within the existing type certification, saving time and money. The FAA, the United States Federal Aviation Administration, relied too heavily on Boeing's self-assessments and delegated many oversight tasks back to the manufacturer. This exposed deep flaws in the regulatory process. Global outcomes and impact. After the second crash, 737 MAX aircraft were grounded worldwide. This step was essential not only for aviation safety but also for restoring public confidence. Boeing faced billions of dollars in losses, massive order cancellations, and severe brain damage. These events also increased security of AAA and FAA and United States Congress. The crisis forced re-evaluation of aircraft certification process and regulatory independence across the industry. Subsequent measures and return to service. Boeing had to redesign the MCAS system. It now relies on data from two sensors, and if there is a disagreement between them, the system remains inactivate. Also, MCAS is now limited to a single intervention. New training modules and simulator requirements were introduced for pilots. The FAA truly tested these changes and allowed the aircraft to return to service at the end of the 2020. Conclusion and reflection. The Boeing 737 MAX crash showed us that ethical responsibility and transparency are just as vital as technical innovation. A company's desire to move fast and maximize profits should never come before human lives. Regulatory agencies must remain independent and fulfill their duties with diligence. These events hold important lessons for improving safety not only in one aircraft model but across the entire aviation industry. You can see my sources over here. Thank you for listening to me.